Welcome, one and all, to the Enjey Region. Enjey is a Pokémon region project I've been working on since the fall of 2021. As the name might suggest, Enjey is inspired by New Jersey, where I grew up. With its variety of environments, towns, and cultural touchstones, I felt that New Jersey was ripe for a fun Pokémon region. This tiny but dense state just has a lot of potential, and I'm skeptical that it will ever be visited in a canon Pokémon game since New York City has already gotten the spotlight with Unova. So I've decided to take on this mantle myself. Enjey takes inspiration not just directly from New Jersey, but the east coast of the United States as a whole. Enjey serves not just as a creative endeavor, but also as sort of a research project. While working on this region, I've taken a look at the process of how Game Freak seems to create their Pokémon games and attempted to emulate a similar process myself. Of course, there are differences. Game Freak has a full team of people working on these games, and I'm just one guy. Essentially, the Enjey project encompasses much of the creative process required for a full Pokémon region. I'll be creating a full Pokédex, a region map, the human characters, the storyline, and maybe even some music down the line. Of course, though, to climb a mountain, you must begin with a single step. And today, we do that by meeting our player characters and our starter Pokémon. In the Enjey region story, we follow the player characters Bridget and Basil. They're around 14 or 15 years old. I imagine them to be high school freshmen. You might be thinking that's a little bit old for a player character, and it is. In the story of Enjey, something happened in the past that caused the player's mother not to let you start your journey at 10, and instead insist you wait a few years. I'll get to that with much more detail in a future video, but the main point is that our characters are young teens. Bridget's name comes from Bridget Bishop, the first person to be executed for witchcraft during the Salem witch trials. Her name is also a reference to Saint Bridget of Sweden, who is said to have had a vision of Christ on the cross at the age of 10. A mystical encounter at that age feels oddly appropriate for a Pokémon character, in my opinion. And in the next month's episode, you'll see how it's even more relevant to Bridget. And while that's a bit of a dark and mysterious past, I still thought Bridget was a very fitting name for an energetic teen girl. Basil's name came second, and it has a slightly less deep meaning. First and foremost, in witchcraft, the herb basil is associated with prosperity, protection, and love. Basil is also another name that begins with B, and my intention was to make sure that the names for the player characters were very matchy. This is to parallel Unova's player characters Hilda and Hilbert. And of course, I have a personal reason to go with the name Basil. A friend of mine uses the nickname Basil, which you'll see spelled on screen, not the same as the herb. And I thought that this character Basil would be a fun Easter egg just for them. The player characters' ages aren't the only odd things about the beginning of Enjey's journey. Your choice of starters is actually somewhat unusual, at least in the history of the Enjey region. Enjey starters are typically 3 Pokémon that we've seen before: Chikorita, Tepig, and Poplio. I'll talk about these Pokémon and their relationship to Enjey in another video sometime in the future. A new conservation campaign for endangered Pokémon species means that your starter choices are now a little different. Because of their endangered status, these Pokémon have been bred in captivity and are now being given as starter Pokémon to help increase awareness for their wild populations. These Pokémon are actually inspired by real-world endangered animals found in New Jersey. Without further ado, let's meet the starter Pokémon of the Enjey region. Let's begin with the grass-type choice. This is Pupsprout, the Sprout Pokémon. It's a grass-flying type. Flying over the forest, energy from its wings helps seeds to sprout. It sometimes flies over farms, where it brings an abundance of both crops and weeds. The inside of its ears are meant to resemble the layers within a piece of fruit, and this theme will continue for its entire evolution line. Pupsprout is inspired by the little brown bat, one of my personal favorite native animals here in New Jersey. Its name comes from pup, the term for a baby bat, and sprout, which is, of course, a young plant. Pupsprout evolves into Nectobat, the blooming bat Pokémon. Like its previous form, it is a grass-flying Pokémon. The smell on its flowers is very sweet. It spends nearly all its waking hours pollinating plants, increasing biodiversity wherever it goes. Despite their sleepy-looking faces, they're very diligent workers, especially at night when they're at their most active. Nectobat is inspired by bats that feed on nectar and help pollinate plants, and is also a direct progress from Pupsprout, going from a newly sprouted plant to one that produces flowers. Naturally, Nectobat's name combines both nectar and bat. Finally, Nectobat evolves into Batriculture, the garden fruit Pokémon. Just like the rest of its family, it's a grass-flying type Pokémon. By dropping its magical fruits on the ground, it gives nutrients to the soil that it flies over. It is thought that long ago, Batriculture taught humans how to cultivate crops. Batriculture's name comes from bat and agriculture. As the progression of Nectobat, Batriculture moves from a flowering plant to one that has produced fruit. Even its leafy wings now resemble the interior of a fruit, specifically inspired by citrus fruits and kiwis. With the final form, Batriculture reveals yet another common theme I wanted to use for all of the Enjey starters: the types of people that you meet in New Jersey. Batriculture represents the first group, New Jersey natives that intend to spend their entire lives here. Being the Garden State, New Jersey is home to quite a few farmers and other folks that live in rural areas. Even closer to the shore, people who intend on living their whole lives here in New Jersey often express an appreciation for the natural environment, and that being part of why they want to stay here. At least, that's what I've heard in my experience living here. If you don't want to pick our grass-type starter, why not consider our fire-type one? Meet Travelar, the traveling Pokémon. This little guy is a poison fire type. Highly picky eaters, these Pokémon only eat toxic plants. They have a resistance to all sorts of poisons. Travelar is inspired by a pretty famous endangered animal, the monarch butterfly. The reason for that poison typing is because monarch butterflies are poisonous. Because they only lay their eggs on poisonous plants like milkweed, they're able to ingest plenty of poison and become quite foul-tasting bugs. You might notice that Travelar's eye pattern makes it seem to wear sunglasses. That's because Travelar's family represents the second and perhaps most well-known group of people you encounter in New Jersey: tourists. The lines on its body mimic the pattern on real-life monarch caterpillars, but also resemble seatbelts, reinforcing the traveling theme. Its name, of course, comes from traveler and caterpillar. Travelar evolves into Buggage, the luggage Pokémon. It's another fire and poison type. The spots on its body can vary based on what it ate as a traveler. It sits still, but is planning to move. Quite obviously, Buggage is based on travel luggage, and the spots on its body are inspired by travel stickers many people put on their suitcases. Even its little feet look like wheels you might see on a suitcase, although this little guy doesn't really roll those wheels, he walks with them, like the little suction cup feet you might see on a caterpillar. I see a lot of similarities between a pupating bug and a person preparing to travel, and sought to represent that with Buggage's design. Naturally, you can see that its name comes from bug, baggage, and luggage. I'm honestly not sure what else to say about Buggage. I feel like its design and its vibes just speak for themselves. Buggage. Buggage. Once it's ready to set off on an adventure, Buggage evolves into Migrafly, the smiling tourist Pokémon. Like the rest of its family, Migrafly is a fire-poison type Pokémon. Visiting Enjey is just one part of a 4-leg migration. These Pokémon are treasured by the locals. They always seem to have a bright, wide smile on their faces, reminding the people of the summer sun. Monarch butterflies born in New Jersey actually embark on the longest leg of the eastern monarch migration route, traveling all the way from New Jersey to Mexico. I felt that this famous, beautiful, migrating animal that travels in swarms was perfectly appropriate to represent tourists from out of state. Of course, as a New Jersey resident, I'm more partial to the migratory animals than I am to the visiting humans, but still, you can't deny that tourism is a huge part of New Jersey's culture. Last, but most certainly not least, we have our water-type starter. Meet Eftadot, the polka dot Pokémon. This little fellow is a pure water type. Because of its curious nature, it's inclined to leave its pond early and watch the outside world. However, it frequently finds itself in trouble, which has caused the species to become endangered. Eftadot here is based on the blue-spotted salamander, an amphibian found in the northeast corner of North America. While not considered endangered in North America at large, they are still considered an endangered species in New Jersey. One of the challenges with Eftadot was not to make it too similar to Sobble, another pretty similar water-type Pokémon. I exaggerated its eyes to give it a nerdy but cute feel, and a callback to other animals like Popeye goldfish, giving it a mixed aquatic species vibe. Eftadot evolves into Salistuddy, the observing Pokémon. Like Eftadot, it is a pure water type. By observing other Pokémon, it learns tactics on how to hide from prey. It experiments with techniques using trial and error, learning from each attempt. It has high aspirations. I gave Salistuddy a nice lanky body to give it that awkward teenage feel. The frills around its eyes are meant to evoke frilled lizards and gushing cartoon tears. Why would I evoke tears in this design? Well, aside from the water thing, there's another reason, but we'll talk about that in the final evolution. And of course, Salistuddy's name is derived from salamander and study. Salistuddy evolves into Skylamander, the skyline Pokémon. In this final evolution, Skylamander becomes a water ghost type Pokémon. The glowing spots on its back mimic a skyscraper's reflection in the water. It is able to hide in rivers, camouflaging below cities. It always seems fatigued. Skylamander reflects the final group of people you might find in New Jersey. If Batriculture are locals who want to stay, and Migrafly are tourists who want to visit, Skylamander represents locals who want to leave. The most common way people in New Jersey leave? Why, that's going to the city. And one of the most common ways to do that is by commuting there for work. Skylamander, with its bloodshot red eyes and tears, represents fatigue and tireless work. The patterning on its body is meant to resemble the reflection of a city on the water, as both New York City and Philadelphia are separated from New Jersey by a river. Now that you know the conclusion, you can see that F. line represents the progression from an avid student to a tired city worker. Despite their grim inspiration, I think the F. line might be my personal favorite of our 3 starters. But hey, maybe that's just because I have a soft spot for ghost types. Now that you've seen all 3 of Enjey's starter Pokemon, which one would you choose as your partner for your Enjey adventure? Please let me know in the comments. I really want to see what everyone's favorite starters are. I'm curious which ones are the most popular, and I'm really just happy with this trio overall. I've been working on Enjey for a very long time, and I'm very excited to finally be sharing the fruits of my labor with everybody, and the starters are really just a lovely little microcosm of what this project is all about. Next month, I'll be releasing another video about Enjey, and that one will go over our box legendary Pokemon, which I am very, very excited to talk about. I'll also talk a little bit more about the beginning of Enjey's story, and we'll talk a little bit about the plot, which I'm pretty excited about as well. If you would like to support me, right now I have a Kickstarter project going on for Westie stickers and pins. These are stickers and pins featuring my favorite breed of dog, the Westie, inspired by my own late Westie Charlie. And hopefully this project is going well. I'm still recording this very early into the campaign, and this video won't be coming out until about halfway through, so hopefully the progress is going well on that project, and if you would like to support me, this is one of the best ways to do so, and you get some stuff out of it too. However, if you're watching this after the campaign is ended, or you'd like to support me some other way, Ko-fi is another great way to do that. I post a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff about my progress on the Enjey region, including beta designs for Pokemon, my shaded renders of them basically as I finish them, and all sorts of other stuff that only members and supporters get to see. And with that, I believe that is all I've got for you guys today. Like I said, please let me know what your favorite starter Pokemon is below. I really do want to know. I'm very excited to be sharing them all with you. And I'll see you all next week with another art video. So in the meantime, why don't you guys go out there and make some art?